What's going on, everybody? So today is 2.4 lesson, advocating for community and public health. The idea here is that you'll be able to define community health, analyze the influence affecting community health, advocate for community health by identifying community resources, participating in community service, considering organ donation, and understanding environmental justice. Identify public goals and organizations and describe health organizations that promote world health. Okay, here are your key terms over here on the side that you'll need to know. Moving right along, let's go into the next page. All right, so it does talk about how your health is created and depends on a lot of different factors. All right, so what is community health? Community health describes the overall health of a community. Easy enough, right? Over here on the left side here, I'm pointing with my pen, need to point with my cursor. Overall health of a group of people who live in the same area and interact with one another. All right? So, in your daily life, you're not just going to communicate probably with your family. There's going to be some other people involved in that, whether you really want it to be or not. You got to go to the store, you got to go to the courthouse, you got to go to work, things like that. That's going to force you to be involved with other people. School, obviously a big one. All right, so the idea of community health, if a community is healthy, this means there are positive relationships among people and organizations. All right, so a community that is healthy has these positive interactions. Some don't. All right, and that affects people in a multitude of ways. So, schools, scientists, healthcare professionals, and community residents work together to promote community health. For example, medical scientists study how diseases spread and how people can prevent them. These scientists advise doctors and governments about how to use vaccines to prevent certain diseases. Government officials use this information to develop laws for the public. Clinics, doctors, and nurses provide vaccines for people in the community. So right now with COVID going on, you guys have probably gotten a very good taste of community health and a lot of different ways to view things, all right? So right now, scientists, healthcare professionals are advising politicians, Donald Trump, Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio. The CDC is advising various groups of people right now. The World Health Organization is advising the world because it is a pandemic which affects everybody. All right? So these scientists who work for these companies will advise these politicians. Based on what the politicians are told, they will come up with laws such as mask mandates, okay? Obviously, there's other situations that applies to. Vaccines is a big one. Obviously, the flu vaccinations, certain businesses and insurance companies offering flu vaccinations is all kind of intertwined with this, okay? Those are all things that kind of promote community health. If a lot of people in a community all get a vaccination, the chance that everybody is going to be sick from the flu is lessened, which means more people are working, which means the economy is better, production is better, etc. More people are also at school learning, education, that's good, okay? Factors affecting the community. So societal factors. See how it's kind of italicized here? That's kind of like a vocab word hidden in the text. It's not highlighted, but it's still important. Are the social aspects of a community. All right? Different parts of a community right here you'll see. Residents, friends, neighbors, relatives, government, schools, organizations, businesses. Those are all parts of your community, and the health of all these different aspects is important. So, looking at my notes here. Healthcare, education, housing, safety, security, those are all things that you'll see right here that affect you and your society. If you don't have a good healthcare system set up, like I said, it could lead to a lot of people being sick, being unproductive, things like that. Housing's important. If there's not enough housing or good housing, obviously that's going to affect the members. It's going to affect the economy because if there's not enough housing for people to move in, that area is going to be depleted of businesses and things like that, because why would you bring a business somewhere where there's not very many workers that live there, okay? When you're making a decision to bring a business into an area like Amazon, they want to go somewhere not only where they find enough land, but somewhere where there's a lot of community there where they can pull those workers, okay? That's beneficial to them. And it's beneficial to the workers because they have a boosted economy from taxes that are paid by the company, also just the jobs in general that, makes more job availability. All right. And if Amazon shows up, other companies, grocery stores, new housing opportunities might start showing up as well. So that's really important. Safety is a big one, okay? Safety is very important. It also affects why somebody might live somewhere. If you're trying to exercise and you're trying to be healthy, or you want to go to the grocery store, or you want to let your kids play outside, you want to raise a family there, safety's got to be huge, okay? It's like, why would you want to live somewhere where if you go outside, you have the chance of being shot or kidnapped, etc.? If you live downtown Cincinnati, in a lot of areas, there's some historically over the Rhine has some really harsh areas of safety due to just crime rates, violence, drug sales, drug trafficking, human trafficking, even in a lot of areas in Cincinnati. Ohio is really bad for human trafficking. That's all safety. So if you're trying to raise a kid and you want them to be healthy, most kids would be able to go outside and get their 30 to 60 minutes of physical activity. They can't really do that there safely without the fear of being abducted. Being abducted or shot or solicited drugs is going to be worse than missing out on that physical activity in that situation, which you don't want to have to make that decision, right? Also, going to the store, you might skip going to the store just because it's such a dangerous thing, and there's just rough people hanging outside the store or on the sidewalk along the way while you're trying to get there. Also, carjacking, let's say that's a problem and you're trying to drive to the store, you might get carjacked. Okay, safety's huge. And people who live in areas where safety is an issue are more tense, they're more stressed out. It's going to take away from their focus on important things like school, etc. Education's huge. If your school is not good and you don't have a strong education system and good teachers and good administrators to help students who need that support get better, it's going to affect the whole community. And I will talk about that in just a second. Okay? So the reason with education is if you have a society of people, you ever heard the saying that you're only as strong as your weakest link? All right? So if everyone in a community is not educated, it's going to be a problem. Even if you have a few people that are educated, even if the people that make a lot of money and have good jobs and are successful, etc., are up here, they're educated. If you don't have people towards the bottom of your community as far as their socioeconomic or how much money they have, etc., standing goes, if those people aren't educated, it's going to affect everyone else. Okay? So if you're going to run a company, how are you going to run a good company without employees that can come in and be trusted to have an education to perform the more basic tasks, or tasks that are running machines, which definitely requires education for safety, different types of programs, things like that. Running a cash register, even there's a lot of things, especially with some of these new cash registers, it's not so cut and dry anymore. There's a lot of new programs that you got to be able to understand how to use. It even gets more simple than that. Even more seemingly basic jobs like custodial things. You have to have a strong understanding of safety and things like that when you're working with all these chemicals, or working with power tools, things like that. Okay, so all these infrastructure jobs require education. And if kids aren't educated and people aren't educated on the lower levels of the economic standards, they might resort to whatever they have to do to survive. Okay, and that could be stealing from your yard. Okay, if they don't have an education and they can't get a job and they weren't even, maybe they weren't taught certain morals or standards or laws, whatever, they might result to stealing in order to survive. Okay, it might happen. So that stuff can kind of affect your whole community. All right. So that's why education can be super, super important, and it is super important. It's probably the most important societal factor that there is, and that's why I do believe that public education is a good idea, because a lot of kids wouldn't go to school at all if private education was their only option. All right, moving on to the next part. This goes on to talk about safety. We just kind of covered that. The anxiety rates are increased. Can lead to poor physical, this is economic factors. So if you don't have a lot of money, that's a problem. Usually in a lot of ways, just because you can't afford food, that's going to put more stress on you and your family. Maybe clothing. You don't have the resources, maybe a vehicle. That's a lot easier to get to school if you have somebody drop you off, or you can get on the bus, things like that. But for those people who might not have those resources to get the practices and stuff in the evening, I know the bus runs for everybody during the school day, but during the evening for extracurriculars where people can learn team building skills and be around new coaches and do things that keep them out of trouble, they might not have resources to get to those types of activities, or money for a good book bag or writing supplies, things like that. That can affect their learning, obviously. If you have a folder for every class and a notepad for every class, it's way easier to stay organized. Not everybody can do that, and it kind of puts them at a disadvantage, okay? Environmental factors. We're going to spend the last 3 minutes real quick talking about environmental factors. These are things so the built environment includes roads and bridges and buildings and homes and other structures made by people, all right? So we do that. Obviously any highway system, stuff like that, that's built environment. It's kind of self-explanatory. People built it, okay? Natural environment, natural, includes naturally occurring animals, plants, water, soils, and other parts of the environment not built by people. Okay, so kind of a negative thing for a natural environment would be like if you live near a swamp and there's a lot of mosquitoes that carry malaria. Okay, that's part of your environment. There's a lot of mosquitoes there because of the swamp, which could lead to your community's health. That's an example. A good natural environment could be that there's a lot of bodies of water that have clean water. So that's good for your community. Or it could be the other way around. Maybe your water is always polluted. That's not good. Okay? We'll talk about that here in a second. Physical layout. So this depends on how far apart buildings and things are. Grocery stores. So your physical layout might be kind of spread out. That could cause problems. If you don't have a sidewalk system, that's huge. A sidewalk system allows you to more easily walk. For those who don't have cars, they don't have that resource, they can walk to grocery stores, walk to the gym, walk to get exercise, things like that. That's important. So your physical layout makes a difference. Food deserts, that's a place where there's not really grocery stores. If you got to imagine that here in Hebron area, there's a grocery store in a lot of different places. All right, it's not too far away. It's pretty easy to get to. If you live out in like Nevada or the middle of the country and you're 35 minutes or an hour from the nearest grocery store, that's a big deal. You might have to grow your own food or try. So that stuff can affect people. That's called a food desert. It's an area without nearby full-service grocery stores. People can't get nutritious fresh vegetables, fruit, and meat. They might get their stuff from convenience stores or fast food restaurants, which are not good sources of nutrients for you. Access to safe water. People in Flint, Michigan, and for the past 6, 7, 8 years haven't had safe water, so they've been getting diseases, whether they're drinking it. Cancer is something that they've identified could be an issue from it. Rashes from showering. So access to safe water is very important. Pollution. If you ever seen Beijing, China, there's so many huge companies and very little restrictions on what those do. The pollution's horrible. Even before Corona, people were walking around with masks because of pollution is so bad in China. Same thing with Los Angeles in the 70s. People had to wear masks because it was so dirty. That's obviously going to affect people's health, whether they can run outside or grow crops, things like that. That's huge. Population's another big thing. The more people that are stacked on top of each other, the more demand for food. There's less food to go around, less jobs, higher anxiety, and blood pressure is usually increased in those types of people too. I'm out of time.